Good evening, Facebook family and friends. Starting out well, huh? Hi, I'm Cathy Novicky, president and founder of Champions Over Cancer and author of the book Cloudy with a Chance of Cancer. And welcome to my 90-day Facebook Live challenge. Today is day 43. Apparently last night I said it was going to be a day 42 again, so mea culpa. You know, those big numbers starts to get hard to count, but anyway. So if you've been following, last night I talked about, turn the page now, I don't remember. The culture of when you're told about cancer. Tonight I want to talk about take that a little further and talk about what happens when you first hear the word across the desk that you have breast cancer. I've been there, so I understand this, and everyone has different reactions, but there are some very similar themes that you read about, and unfortunately, if you have to experience them, you will understand. And I hope with all my heart that whoever is listening doesn't have to. But Champions Over Cancer is a network that we're building to help cancer-free patients and people who've been touched by cancer, caregivers, find assistance with issues that remain so that they can come to some kind of closure and get on with their life with this second chance and to go forward. So why do I say that when I'm going to talk about what you do when you're told you have cancer? Well, because what you do from that moment forward makes everything that follows fall in line. And I'll explain. When you're told that you have breast cancer, you go blank. Panic, fear, world stops, time stops, you know it, I know it. It's very, very difficult to describe. But what I'm going to say with no demeaning sentiment is stop, breathe, take a deep breath, because knowing what you have while it's not great, is much, much better than not knowing what you have. You have something, you could deal with it, you could research it, you can find out how to treat it. When you don't know what you have and they think something's wrong, the frustration is overwhelming. I know. But you said, Cathy, overwhelming is what you felt when they told you you had cancer. Yes. But people experience things differently. We're unique. We're human beings. We have emotions. Our head is connected to our body, even though the insurance companies don't believe that. But I know it for sure. Otherwise, mine would have rolled off a long time ago, you know? So, once that word is verbally spoken, it doesn't go away. It's there. You find yourself then on this treadmill of testing and probing and questions that you don't have answers to. And like I said last night, you have to make decision A before you can make B, before you make C. And I am in the healthcare profession. I am a registered nurse. And yet decisions were so difficult. Whether it was because I knew more, it could be the case, but I don't know. It's just, you're just bombarded with so much information. So again, stop, take a step back and take a deep breath. Bring someone with you, another pair of ears with you to hear. Because to this day, Jay, my husband, we are still together, thank you, and going on 31 years, you know, it's very, very difficult on a marriage when a wife has breast cancer. But that's a whole nother topic. So, you know, take a deep breath, step back, and blink if you have to, and take another deep breath before you jump off that cliff. Stop. Because, as I said last evening, breast cancers there are more testing. The testing is more specialized and getting better every single day. So the probability that they have found your cancer earlier than they would have, say, 10 or 15 years ago is the higher. So therefore, the earlier they find it, the better the better options of treatments that you have. So it's not a death sentence anymore. That's not to say that for everyone, because my cancer was a stage 3A. I was very advanced, and my mammogram only hinted at something here. So, and it hadn't been, you know, my lump hadn't been there the week before. So there are very, very aggressive cancers that need to be treated very aggressively, very quickly. But for the most part, a mutated cell, from the first time a cell mutates, I was told by my surgeon, the first surgeon I saw, that it takes 8 years before you can actually palpate it. In other words, feel it. So while the culture still says death sentence, it's much, much better. So the fact is that your whole world does change. Even if you have a stage 0 or you have a stage 1, your choices are different. But what I want to say, and what the emphasis of tonight's live is that you can find a way to take control over your cancer diagnosis. I know you cannot take control of your cancer, but you can control what you know about it. Learn, ask questions of the surgeon. If you see an oncologist, you see a radiation specialist, you see your primary care physician, ask questions. Write down questions. Bring someone to write them down for you, to listen with you. Do your research. Do your due diligence. Go to nationally accepted scientific sites and find out what your specific grading means. Now, I hadn't intended on talking about this, but I'll throw it in there. It can get more complicated, but I'm going to simplify it just because it can be simplified. Your cancer staging before surgery is done, and the formula is T, N, and M. And that's how they come to a stage. T is the size of your tumor. They can estimate it, they can try to measure it, but until they get in there and get it out on a specimen tray, that's, you know, can be a little off. N is nodes. How many lymph nodes? Do you have lymph node involvement? How many? And M is metastasis. They're going to test you, they're going to scan you to see if you have any other hot spots where they're finding abnormalities, they're finding tumors, they're finding clusters of cells that are not supposed to be there, or they don't like what they look like. So for me, my tumor was of a large tumor, and that put me, I think, 3 to 5 centimeters is a 3, and there's some overlapping. They say I could have been a 2B or C, but I was a 3A. And it doesn't have to do with your bra size. We're talking about your grading, your cancer tumor grading, or your cancer, what level you're at. So because my tumor was large, I was into the 2 to 3 stage. Because I had 3 positive nodes already, I had the tumor size, the 3 nodes. My T and my N were already positive. Thankfully, and I'm very grateful for the fact, and 7 years later I remain grateful that my metastatic workup was negative. And if you have had positive nodes and they've done a metastatic workup, you understand what I mean. Because once cancer cells are into your lymph system, the likelihood of it being spread exponentially increases. So for them to not see any at that time was somewhat of relief. Not somewhat, it was a relief. So then they do the whole, that's how they figured out. Now, your final staging cannot be done until after surgery. What they find that they didn't know about sometimes, and then doing the histology on the cell, which means, taking, I know this sounds really gross, but it's just kind of dinner table conversation for us in my house. They actually take slices of the cells and they study them under microscopes, and they are able to distinguish which type of cell it is based on its shape, if it doesn't pick up stain, and that's not my area of expertise. So I'm just, these are things that I know they look at, but beyond that, it's not, I wouldn't pretend to know anything more about that. So that's when they come and they know your staging. Now they'll also know at that time whether or not you are positive. You have a hormone positive tumor, meaning that it has estrogen receptors, it has progesterone receptors, or it has this HER2 receptor. Those type of tumors respond to oral chemotherapy and targeted regimes that can, by clicking on to the receptors, it stops that mutation from growing. So you see, just from this little explanation, I hope you can see that cancer, while it is overwhelming and while it is very, very complicated, they have and are developing at quite a brisk pace targeted treatments. And so for women who get breast cancer, that is absolutely phenomenal, and to a large degree that comes from the fundraising that all the many different groups do, because they fundraise for research and for detection and for free mammograms, etc., which is very, very important. You can't do anything until you're diagnosed. God forbid you're ever diagnosed. But, because, you think, she's talking about the cancer-free period. Why is she talking about this? Because this influences everything that happens afterwards, after you've heard that diagnosis. I had a very good friend of mine who spent a long time on the phone with me one day and said, you know, what's been done, you know, we're talking about all of that, and said to me, well, if you're comfortable with the information, etc., then do it here, meaning the hospital that I work in. It's a small rural community hospital, and I was very comfortable with my surgeon. It was excellent. But then my friend said to me, you really, and don't jump when I say this, let me explain. He said, you really only get to get it right the first time. And I thought about that. And I thought about it for, you know, a good piece of time, and really thought really deeply about it. And what came to me was, and why he was stressing it so much, was because depending on what you do depends on what happens going forward, right? So if they had performed a lumpectomy and they didn't get clean margins, meaning clean margins are a certain metric zone that they go out from your cancer, you know, in whatever shape it is. And let's say it's, I don't know, 3 millimeters, or I don't know how. Metrics was never my thing. But I could do volume, ounces to cc's. But so they have to get beyond a certain number of millimeters around the tumor area to have considered clean margins. Now, if you think about it, if it's already, mine was already the size of a walnut and was into my lymph nodes. So, how do you get clean margins out of that in terms of the fact that it's already invasive, you know? I mean, it doesn't mean that some little sly cell wouldn't be someplace else. And I'm not to say to put down lumpectomy, because there are, you know, there are appropriate treatments for every individual. But I just did my research and my knowledge base and my thought process all brought me to having a bilateral mastectomy, and we talked about that last night. So, you get all that, and you are comfortable with where you are, who is your surgeon, etc., then all fine and good. But any physician worth his weight in gold, if you say, I want to have a second opinion, will say, good, okay, because they're comfortable enough in their skills, etc., to appreciate another set of eyes, another physician's opinion. That is, you know, the fact that you think, oh, he's sending me away, he must not know what he's doing. No, it's the exact opposite. They appreciate a second opinion because it confirms what their diagnosis is. At times they don't agree, and then you think, oh my God, now what? Well, I had 3 opinions, to be honest with you, and they all were the same. and they all were get treated. You know, they all were very, it was very imperative that they came across to get treated quickly. So I encourage people to get a second opinion. And if you have a physician, and there are physicians out there, I'm speaking of no one in particular, but there are physicians who, when you say, I am going to get a second opinion, they'll say, well, you don't need a second opinion. We've got everything right here. This is my personal opinion. Pick up your purse and run. Because a physician who discourages you from getting a second opinion is someone that you do not want to be involved in your care. They are not comfortable. They come across as self-confident, but they work you that, why are you doubting me? Run. Run, grab your purse and your husband, if he's there, and run. So you've educated yourself. You have somebody there that's a second set of ears that's listening to you. Now you've gone and gotten a second, perhaps third opinion. And as my Dutch pit bull of a oncology nurse kept sending my slides out, because I was triple negative, meaning I had no receptors on my tumor for any hormones. It's called triple negative breast cancer, which is the most aggressive form of breast cancer. And she just kept sending those slides out until she found someone that found one or two that would accept estrogen. And it increased my prognostic percentage by 25% or something like that. And I'm here 7 years later. So that's the bottom line. And then when you have all of that information, when you've done your research, you've spoken to your physicians, you've asked the questions, you know, what stage is it? What's appropriate for, do I need surgery? Do I don't need surgery? Is it early or is it late? Is it very aggressive? You know, these are all things that have now come into the breast cancer spectrum, which has grown so aggressively over the past 15, 20 years because of this early detection saves lives, because they're finding so many more. But the you know, the conundrum in the healthcare society is, well, how do we treat them? We don't treat them all with one size fits all you know, recipe. And so that's where you have to come in and you have to be your advocate, because patients are the ones that start the change in medical practices. Now, I know that sounds funny. The only other thing that does, and a very good friend of mine said this, was war. He is a Vietnam war veteran. He was a medic, and he said, you know, we've talked on and off, blah, blah, blah. And he said the biggest advances in surgery and medicine come through war times, because there's less regulation. You know, we're not, you know, I'm not proposing that we do this to you know, find new and better things for treatments. But in wartime, there are less regulations. You're working in crisis mode, and you're doing anything you can to save that soldier's life. And so people, educated individuals, doctors and nurses, get creative, and things work. And if they don't do it again. But they're not using the soldiers as guinea pigs. They are just doing everything they can to help the soldier. So when I say what did I say? That patients change medicine. It's it's less subtle than war, but what it's saying is that if I go into a physician's office and the physician, I've had two evaluations, and physicians both say that you should do this, and I want to do this, just as an example. Well, and they won't do it with you. You have to find someone who will do what you want, and put your team together. And this was another extremely important and I hold the two conversations very close to my heart, because they were well thought and from the heart, and I believe a lot of that is why I'm still here today. But this physician said to me, do your due diligence, as I'm sure you have. Find a team, meaning a doctor and a hospital, etc., who will do what you want, as long as it's within some kind of, conventional medical treatment, and perhaps some alternative. That's coming. It's slowly, seeping into the staunchy medical tradition, and there's a lot to be said for certain integrative medicine, integrative therapies. So find someone who will agree with you, who will support you, the team that will work with you, and the therapy, the surgery you've chosen, the therapy you've chosen, and you will be fine. And he said that to me in April of 2010. And it is July of 2017. And I am still here. And I thank him for that every time I see him, because you just don't know what to do. And while he didn't tell me what to do, he put it in the context of a formula. So you educate yourself, get your opinions, and then you use your gut. What does your gut tell you? I don't know. I've never done a study or read a study about people going on their gut instincts. But you might call it something else, the sense that it's the right thing to do. I call it gut. I use it professionally, and I'll never regret it. I would rather call and intervene if a patient I feel is in trouble, and get stuff going, and then find there's nothing wrong and apologize, as opposed to ignoring something and having a bad outcome for a patient. That's how I work as a nurse, and that's how I work in my personal life. If my gut is happy and says, yeah, this is good, I'm okay with it, blah, 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 I go with it. If my gut is screaming, and I call it my antennas, because they, some people say the hair on the back of their neck stands up. I say my antennas are like vibrating. Ooh, no. That's my gut. And while it may not be right 100% of the time, because who's right 100% of the time, I go with it. And if I have to apologize, I apologize. I am not above that, because I want what's best for me when I am in that situation, and I want what's best for anyone who's out there that's listening to this, that either is in the middle of it, is in the beginning of it, or is way, way out in that cancer-free population that I'm in, because you still have to make decisions out there. And I won't be able to throw any off the top of my head right now because I was looking at the beforehand. But, you know, yeah, I do know one. And it's a very fresh example. I came home, I worked Wednesday. Today's Friday. When you don't work Monday through Friday, things get really confusing. So I worked Wednesday, and I work tomorrow. Tomorrow's Saturday. When I came home Wednesday, I was reading something. I was sitting on the edge of my bed, and I was reading something. And I moved my head in a couple of different directions, and I went, ugh. You know, that was painful. And, you know, my neck is always stiff. Occupational hazard, personal hang-ups, you know, whatever you want to call it. But I was at the chiropractor today, and I didn't say to her about my neck. Actually, what I did was I took some Motrin before I went to bed and biofreezed it after I took my shower. And when I woke up the next day, it didn't hurt. It didn't hurt when I changed positions, put in that different position. But that's the kind of thing that if you've had cancer and now you're 7 years cancer-free and something like that happens, the bells go off in your head. Ding, ding, ding. Oh, I had this neck pain. Oh, God, I hope it's not anything. You know, and your brain starts going. What did I do? And this is pretty amazing for me, considering that I can be pretty high-strung. I stopped, took a deep breath, didn't put my neck in those positions, took a shower, put some heat on it, took some Motrin, and went to sleep. You know, and nursing or medicine is like this. You know, we're good deniers also. And I thought, well, let's see what it feels like in the morning. And that was Wednesday. So it's 48 hours now. And it hasn't happened again. So I don't know what it was. I twisted my neck the wrong way or something, and it hurt. But where did my mind go to? It instantly went to, oh my God, I wonder if it's a tumor, right? So, I mean, you still do it. You know, you try to think that you are settled with it and you know how to deal with it now. But when something like that happens, your head, your emotions outweigh your intellectual knowledge. So that's why you have to stop. Take a deep breath and try to listen as well as you can and put it into the context. Because breast cancer is no longer an absolute death sentence. I can't say it's completely not, because there's always going to be outliers. But do your due diligence. Find a team. Listen to people that you respect. Get answers when you need more, and have your team on the same page, and everything will go okay. I'm not going to say it's going to be fine, it's going to be easy. It's not. But you'll come out the other side, and hopefully you won't have as many issues as I did. Hopefully you won't have any issues. If I could wish something, I would wish that people came out the other side and were instantly back to their old normal. But it's just not the case. And that's what spurred me on for my mission with Champions Over Cancer. Because cancer-free, once I was cancer-free, I was not my old self. Nothing went back to normal. Nobody told me this. How do I figure it out? Nobody tells you that either. So that's what we're here for. We're here not only to educate you before, as I'm kind of figuring out, because people need educating, people have questions, but it just follows the path. And when on the other side, hopefully we can help people bring closure, have some relaxation in their life. Their quality of life is acceptable to them. It's good for them, and they find themselves. They're not holding their breath anymore. They're taking deep breaths. They're living very mindfully because they've learned how, that everything happens for a reason. Maybe no, but they look at their day and see what's good and what was not so good. And we can help, because that's what we're here for. We're changing the conversation on cancer-free, and we're changing the culture of cancer-free patients. We're here, all 14 plus million of us. We all have been through it. We all have different experiences, but we all need many of the same resolutions. So, here's another hot flash. Whenever I get excited, I get a hot flash. So, thank you for following us. Thank you for listening to this Facebook Live. It is day 43 on June 7th. Tomorrow, July 7th. Tomorrow is July 8th. I'm working, and it will be day 44. So if anyone who has followed those days when I'm working, I usually get pretty wild. And, when I'm tired, things just keep flying out. So I hope everyone is home, tucked in, safe, and well. And thank you for following us. Click the link to our Champions Over Cancer webpage. Like us, follow us on Facebook. Our videos are on YouTube. We need to get the word out, to start talking about not being a survivor, but becoming a champion. We are looking forward, not backwards. So, everybody have a great night, and I'll see you tomorrow. Don't know what time. And peace.